Okay, so that means I can crack on with what's coming up in 2026. And again, I can't remember what my first slide is. I think, no, okay. So last year we had 12 months of hats, and 2 years before that we had the building blocks cowl, which was a 12-month knit along. So next year isn't going to be a monthly knit along in that style because we're probably going to do those every other year. So that gives us all of 2026 for people who haven't completed all the hats yet. You've still got 12 months to catch up on those. So if you want, you can start on January in your January hat next year and work your way through the month again and have them all done by the end of next year. But what we are doing next year in 2026 is something that we hope is just as brilliant and just as motivational. And it's called Best Year Ever. And it's a brand new program. It's going to run each month with a different milestone for the month. And January is going to be called Setting the Foundations. For each of the months, we are going to curate content for you for everybody at whatever level of machine knitter you are. If you're only 7 years old and just starting out, there'll be something there for you. And if you're 77 years old and you've been knitting for a while, there'll be something there for you as well. But the idea is to give you inspiration and motivation to work through the year and make it your best year ever of machine knitting. So this is how it's going to work. So it's our best year ever program. It's a 12-month machine knitting adventure, 12 inspiring themes to guide you through with skill building and creativity. You can start wherever you want. You can start in January and work your way through all of the months. You can go backwards to months if you've missed them. It's entirely up to you. But I will be kicking that off in January with a launch event on the 6th of January. So if you want to find out the full details, you can join me then. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of a sneak of what's coming up over the 12 months. So this is what it's going to look like. These are the milestones. And the idea is that for every month that you complete, you get your badge for that milestone. And if you want, by the end of the 12 months, you will have completed 12 milestones and had your best year ever of machine knitting. So we're going to start in January with foundations of machine knitting because we all know how important that is. A lot of that will revolve around prepping your machines and your studio space ready for all the knitting you have ahead of you. Then in February, we're going to be exploring textures and patterns. March, we will be mastering colour work. In April, we will be looking at shaping techniques. May, we are going to follow that with garment construction. So I hope you can see already how that's kind of all building towards things. In June, we are going to look at sustainable knitting. And then in July, we're going to kind of take a step away from garments and look at knitwear as art. In August, we're going to do a dive into technology and knitting technology. And then September, we will start the kind of the advance towards the end of the year, and it all gets a little bit more complicated. So we'll be looking at adapting for fit, then advanced stitch techniques in October. November is going to be all about holiday knitting. So we're going to have some great stuff going on there to help you complete any holiday knitting you want to do. And we'll do it nice and early in November to give us all a chance of completing at least something. And then December will be the month where we reflect, showcase, and celebrate and wrap it all up. So I hope that looks like quite a nice adventure that you might want to follow along with us next year. I'm going to share the details of the first 3 months with you to kind of give you a flavour of how it's going to work. So what we're going to have is it's going to be very similar in some ways to what we do now. So you're still going to have Knit Club. We're still going to have 3 momentum sessions, although momentum sessions are now going to be 90 minutes long so that we have enough time to really get some serious machine knitting or whatever it is that you're working on done. Because I know from some of the momentum sessions that I have hosted that we do a lot of talking at the beginning and a lot of talking at the end, and then that doesn't leave much time for knitting in the middle. So we figured if we do 90 minutes, we can have a good 15 minutes at the start, an hour's concerted effort and 15 minutes at the end. And that should be a really nice, productive session. And then the content in each month is going to be curated around those milestones. So, whereas in the past, sometimes we've made it super difficult for you because we've thrown so many different things at you in a month, we might have had a masterclass going and a hat pattern, there's 12 months of hats, and a class with Bill on Argyle and something else all in the same month, that I'm surprised you're not all kind of having to lie down at the end of every month with all of that stuff. So what we're going to do this time round is really make sure that everything fits together and works together, so that across that month everybody has something based at their skill level of where they are now or where they want to get to, that they can focus on. And that will include sometimes signposting you to some of the content that we've already got. Sometimes it will be live classes. Sometimes it might be a knit along around that theme. But it should all fit together, and therefore you can pick one or two things each of those months to help you achieve that milestone at whatever level you are at. And then some of you might have seen, just snuck in there at the bottom, we have a new range of designer knit and pass up specific lessons as well for the people who are interested in both of those areas. And then on top of all of that, we will have 3 new masterclasses throughout the year. So this is how, oh no, not quite. I've got one more slide. So I was just saying about the momentum sessions. So those are now 90-minute sessions, and they've all been standardized. So they're all going to run at 7 o'clock in the local time zone where they're coming from. I think before now they've been a bit all over the place. So we're standardizing those. They all start at 7 o'clock, either UK time, Eastern North American time, or Australian Eastern time, 7 p.m. So most of those, wherever we live, we should have 2 of those that are reasonably convenient time zones or timings for us. So you can pick and choose which ones of those you want to join. Doesn't mean that you have to live in the UK or Europe to join that session, and you don't have to live in Australia or New Zealand to join that session. It's just whatever works for you. But we are also going to try and coordinate those much more with the theme for the month as well. And I'll talk about that in January a bit. So the first one of those will be running on Monday, the 12th of January. That's a US session with Terry. And I'll come to the January lineup in a minute, but this is the design knit and pass up classes I wanted to tell you about, which we're delighted that Diane is joining us for all of next year, and she is with us almost every month. We've given her a couple of months off over the year, but across the year she's with us almost every month. Either in the first half of the year the focus is on designer knit, on the second half of the year the focus is on pass up. I'm equally excited about both, but very excited about the pass up because I really need something to get me back on that. But her very first class with us is going to be on Wednesday, the 28th of January. So that's a designer knit class, and I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. So look out for that one. So here is what January is looking like. So I've already told you, Tuesday the 6th is when I'm going to kick off everything on Best Year Ever, and I will go into a lot more of the details of how it's going to run, what you need to do to follow along, what you need to do at the end of each month to get your badge, all that kind of stuff. But that's going to be the first class, and I'm also, as part of that, I will be doing my annual looking back at what you've achieved in the previous year, what you want to achieve in the new year, and kind of a bit of a motivational get us all ready and in the right frame of mind session. So that's going to be on the Tuesday, followed by the very next day. So this is perfect timing. Felix from Knit Sonic is going to be back with us. Now, I don't know how many of you watched her Meet the Maker, but if you haven't, go back and watch it because it was brilliant. But she journals and notebooks a lot alongside her hand knitting and her other creative practices. And so she's going to be back on Wednesday the 7th, running a class. Really brilliant session because it's all about how your notebooks can be really scrappy, messy, but how they can become. So if you're going to be doing Best Year Ever across the year, you can use these notebooks as a way of recording all your efforts for the year. So that's going to be a really brilliant session. It's going to be very hands-on. Come along, we'll lead you through how you can start those up and how you can use those to record your machine knitting for the year, or any other creative practice you have, or all of them combined. And then we have, I said, our first, so that's the US one, that's with Terry. But for all of the momentum sessions, and there we go, we have a slide. And I don't have, everything seems to be working. So I'm going to say this really quickly now before it all goes wrong again. So I was somewhere around momentum sessions and saying that in the momentum sessions in January, whoever's running those, we are going to be cleaning and servicing our own machines. So it's an ideal, if all of you, if there's any of you who think, yeah, I really should do it, but I never get round to it, or I don't have time for it, book one of these in your calendar, one of the momentum sessions, and just come along at that point. And do it in that 90 minutes. That you'll get one machine done in 90 minutes, and you'll be so grateful for that for the rest of the year. And if you've got 3 machines, which some of us have, you could come to all 3 momentum sessions, even the one that happens in the middle of your night time, wherever you are, and you could do it then as well. So that's all of those. We have Knit Club, as per usual, and we have our first class with Diane, which is Design a Knit for new users, which I know there will definitely be some of you out there who will be very happy about that. Diane is such a font of knowledge on Design a Knit. So that's going to be brilliant for anybody. And even if you're not a new user, I would say that's going to still be a brilliant class, because I'm always finding new things in Design a Knit, even the most basic things that I never even knew I could do, that I didn't know were there. So that's going to be a brilliant class. And then we are going to wrap up the month with our knitathon. So if you remember when I was telling you about Veronikathon, I said we're going to try and do something similar for this January. So we have earmarked the 3 days right at the end of January, the final weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where we are going to do a charity knitathon, and we're going to use one of Helena's patterns. And the thinking is that amongst us all, I'm sure we've all brought at least one of Helena's patterns, but maybe not got round to knitting it yet. And the idea is that we're all going to come together for these 3 days for a virtual knit-in, and ideally we are going to raise some money for our charity of the year at the same time. So across those 3 days, we're going to have a virtual knit-in, although I would say for those of you who are in guilds or clubs or have friends near you who knit, it would be lovely to all get together for those 3 days to do something as well. So that's one option. And then we're going to pick one of Helena's patterns to work on. Helena's going to be around with us over the course of that weekend. So if people have questions on things, although her patterns are brilliant and she has so much detail in them and so much instruction, and she has videos with them and all sorts, that you shouldn't really need any help, but she will be around. And we can spend those 3 days getting something completed. Now, I'm suggesting the Ripple Bactus shawl, because it will be a nice project that's not too challenging for 3 days, that you could definitely accomplish. But there's, if you want to push yourself a bit further, she's got a brilliant sock pattern, she's got a brilliant vest pattern. So I would say pick the pattern that most motivates you to get something knitted. But the idea is, a bit like we did with Veronikathon, is that across those 3 days, we all finish something. And so we come into February having completed our first, or maybe second or third, depending how well you're doing, project for the year, and then that sets you up for the second month. So that is happening on the 30th of January for 3 days, and we will release, or I'll tell you more about that and release more details when Best Year Ever kicks off at the beginning of January. So hopefully that's something to look forward to. So that's all of January. And like I say, we're going to try and raise money for Tools with a Mission, who are our charity of the year for 2025-26. So far, we have raised £511, which is a brilliant starting point. But I really, really, really want to get to £7,000 to send one full container of knitting machines over to Africa. So we've still got until September of 2026 to try and get to that. So this knitathon at the beginning of January will be our first kind of big push to try and boost those funds. So I will be talking about that a bit more in January again. So February. So February is all about exploring texture and pattern. It's going to be our second milestone. We will have set the foundations. Our knitting machines will be gleaming and beautiful and clean and defluffed, and they'll be purring. We will have finished our first project. We will have got our yarn all organised, our studios all set up beautifully, and we will be ready and raring to explore texture and pattern. And we've got some brilliant things lined up to help you do that, whatever level you are at. So we'll start off. Felix will be back to run a second session on notebooks, and this will be coming back with the notebooks that we've been working on in January and talking about how we've got on and getting feedback and asking questions. So it's a kind of a wrap-up session for that. So that's going to be loads of fun. And then the following evening on Thursday, Victoria Salmon will be back with us, and she will be looking at basic pleats. So she's going to be running a pair of classes on folds and pleats. And like I said, we're trying to make sure that every month there is somebody for something for every level of machine knitting. So the first lesson on the 5th is basic pleats, and then she runs a second lesson on the 12th, which is a more advanced folds and pleats and origami. So both of those are going to be brilliant. In between those, we have a momentum session and a knit club. And then on Thursday, the 19th of February, we have Amber with us, and she's going to be doing pattern and texture with punch cards, but at a much more basic level. So this is more like an introductory dive into using punch cards for pattern and texture. And then the following week, we have Diane with texture and pattern on designer knit. So hopefully you can start to see now how our milestones and our thinking is working. So this month is going to have this real focus just on that one milestone. And we can all, if you want to take part in that milestone and you want to achieve that badge, you just have to complete one of the things during that month to tick off that milestone and help you make the progress throughout the year. So that is February. And then into March when it's colour work. And we will have our first brand new knit along, which is with Kurt. And I know how much everybody loves the knit alongs with Kurt. This one is a follow on, I guess, from the dice roll vest. For those of you who did this, this is a dice rollover sweater. And it is going to be in Kurt's brilliant style, a recipe for knitting a sweater that's quite a simple shape, but that can be adapted to all sizes, all yarns, most machines, doesn't need a ribber, and is a fairly basic style garment, but then you can take it to whatever level or complication you want to add to it. But that's going to be a knit along for the whole month. So that is going to be there for us to all work on together. We will have knit club again. We will have all our momentum sessions. And then we have a talk, excuse me, with Terry Laura. She is going to be taking us through the history of Shetland designers colour work. So if I don't know if any of you know Terry Laura or much about her, she's done some brilliant classes and a Meet the Maker for us already, but her grandma Wilma Malcolmson is a very, very famous and brilliant Shetland colourwork designer and knitter who has been working in knitwear design for over 50 years, and she ran a company called Shetland Designer, and Terry is going to be taking us through the evolution of the colourwork through that company from the 1970s to the 2020s and how colour work has evolved. So it's going to be really interesting for any of you, if you're like me, any of you geeks on how you choose colours and how you put colours together and how they work together. This is going to be a brilliant presentation to come along to. And then we have two classes with Julia Wilmot. Now, Julia is based out of Hong Kong. She's done a Meet the Maker for us a couple of years ago, I think it was now. And she works a lot with playing around with mixing and matching yarns and stitches and patterns. But she is going to be doing a series of two classes on stripes, starting with basic stripes and moving on to advanced stripes. And all of these things can kind of work in conjunction with Kurt's knit along as well, but or they can stand alone. If you're very interested in stripes and choosing colors and that kind of thing, then you can work through both of her lessons. And then at the end of the month, we have Diane back again, who's going to show us how to design with color in Design and Knit. So again, hopefully you can start to see how that whole month is going to pan out, and you should be able to look at, I'm really hoping that all of you can look at that month and think there's something there that I'm really interested in that's really going to get me motivated to think about colour work that month and achieve something, whether it's swatches, whether it's playing around with things, whether it's coming up with ideas, all in your new notebooks that Felix will have encouraged you to start, then that would be brilliant. That is our hope, that we are just going to offer you this kind of menu of things to pick from, and you choose what is appropriate to you. So that is the first 3 months of the year. And we will carry on like that through the rest of the year. But like I say, I'll tell you much more about all of that in that first kickoff session at the beginning of January. The other thing I wanted to share for you for 2026, which we have organised, are our retreats. And we have 2 of them next year, which I'm really, really, really excited about. So this is my second tie-in. When I was talking before about all our Canadian members and how well they've been doing in all the rankings and nominations. And so we have been very inspired by that. And our very first retreat next year is going to be in Canada. So we are going to be in Ontario at Waters Fall from the 7th to the 12th of June, a lovely hotel, the Falls Inn and Spa, which is a very, very nice place indeed. We have it all to ourselves. We will have 16 spaces there, and it will be 5 nights, fully inclusive. It will run in the same way that the UK retreats have run before. So I will be there. Another designer will be there with me. I will be designing a exclusive pattern for retreat. You will get the pattern, you will get the yarn, you will get 5 days of machine knitting to complete it. You will have some social events alongside it. We have a trip to a local yarn dyeing mill. And all of that is taking place on the 7th of June. Like I say, only 16 spaces. So bookings for that are going to open on the 9th of January. And what you will need to do, if you want one of those spaces, you will need to book from the 9th of January. You'll just need £100 deposit. And then we will be sending out in February invoices and payments to sign up for the balance of payments, which will be paid over the next 3 months. So you only need to pay the deposit in January just to secure your place, and then the payments will happen February, March, April for that. So we're very excited about that. I'm very excited to be coming over to Canada. It will be really nice to run a retreat over there. I'm very excited to do something a little bit different with the patterns and the yarns. And I can't tell you much more than that at this point in time. But we do have a full website with all the details of this. So, Katie, I might have forgotten to ask you to do this, but when you put the recording out tomorrow, in the description at the bottom, I will send you the links. And if you can put the links for the full details of both of the retreats on there, then people can check that out. And then there is a wait list. So you can just sign up to the wait list, and then you will be reminded in the run up to the 9th of Jan, and you'll be given all the details about how you can book if you want to for that. So that's our first ever Canadian retreat, which is very exciting. And then our UK retreat will be happening again back at Lumbank from the 30th of August to the 5th of September. And there are 15 spaces on this one. This one is 6 nights. So Canada is 5 nights. This one is 6 nights, fully inclusive. Slightly different pricing structure this year because the levels of the rooms vary quite substantially. So we have some cheaper attic rooms which don't necessarily suit everybody, and we have some ensuite fully accessible rooms. So there's a range of prices for those ones. Now, bookings for the UK one, because the UK one's happening later, bookings open 1 month later on the 9th of February, but same system, £100 deposit secures your place, gets you booked on, and then registration and the invoices will be sent out the following month, and you have 3 installments that you can pay for that. And again, we have a full website with all the details of that on. So the link will be in the recording tomorrow if you want more details on that. But again, you just need to be on the wait list, and then you will get reminders as it gets nearer to the time.
Nick, can I just ask? A couple of people have said the waitlist link isn't working. Is it because